Welcome to the deep dive. If you are learning English or, if you've ever tried to learn a language and just felt completely overwhelmed, let me ask you something important.
Okay.
How many words do you really think you need?
hmm
Before you can actually function, feel comfortable in a native English setting.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And most people, well, most resources, they throw out these huge numbers.
Yeah, like tens of thousands, maybe the 60,000 words in a big dictionary. Just thinking about that, it's enough to make you want to give up before you even start. It feels like burnout waiting to happen.
It absolutely does. And that perception, that feeling of this impossibly huge task, that's really the first barrier we need to break down today, because we're diving into sources, materials that really challenge that whole idea of needing this massive vocabulary. They suggest something quite different.
Which is?
That fluency, functional, everyday understanding. It isn't some far-off peak you might never reach. It's actually, well, surprisingly close.
All right, so here's the fact that really grabbed me from the material, the thing that kind of changes the whole game plan.
Lay it on us.
You only need about 3,000 words, just 3,000, to understand 95% of most everyday conversations. The stuff native speakers actually say.
95%. Let that sink in for a moment. 3,000 words.
It sounds almost too simple.
Well, think about what that means for functional fluency. We're talking about watching a movie, maybe following a news report, chatting with people.
Or even listening to a deep dive like this one, right?
Exactly. That 3,000 words, that's the core. That's the engine of understanding for most situations.
It's not just surprising. It feels like it completely shifts where you should put your effort. It takes the pressure off somehow.
It does. You're not trying to become some kind of literary scholar overnight.
Right. No Shakespeare required.
Not for everyday communication, no. You're aiming for that high-frequency vocabulary, the words that do the heavy lifting in daily speech.
So what about the other 5% then?
Good question. That remaining 5%. It's usually stuff you encounter less often, maybe technical terms or, really specific jargon, sometimes obscure slang or regional words.
Okay.
But here's the thing. If you have those core 3,000 words locked in, you generally have enough context to figure out those outliers, or at least make a good guess.
So the core helps you decode the rest.
Precisely. You don't need to master everything to be functionally proficient. You need to master the most used parts, and that implication is huge. It means focused effort gives you the biggest bang for your buck right away.
So our mission then for this deep dive is to figure out this disconnect. If the target is really only 3,000 words, which sounds frankly manageable.
It is manageable.
Then why did the old ways, the traditional methods, lists, grammar drills, even tutors sometimes, why do they often feel so incredibly slow and boring and just overwhelming?
That's the core problem we need to tackle.
We want to go beyond just what to learn. We need to unpack the how, the efficient way, the way that actually works with your brain to learn those words fast, naturally, and this is key, consistently, without that awful academic grind feeling.
Because the central issue, based on these sources, is that most people spend their time learning about English instead of actually acquiring it.
Learning about it versus acquiring it. What's the difference?
It's like they're in the wrong lane mentally. They're focused on the wrong kind of task for what actually creates fluency.
Okay, let's unpack that. This failure of the traditional ways. Think back maybe to school language classes.
Oh, yeah?
Hours spent drilling verb conjugations.
Yeah.
Present, past, future, conditional, all the tenses. Or memorizing lists of words completely out of context.
Right.
Like table, chair, window, no connection to each other, no connection to anything real.
And the sources we looked at are pretty blunt about this. They say these methods are fundamentally flawed if your goal is language acquisition.
Why flawed?
Because they force your brain into this conscious learning mode. It's like treating language like a math problem or a puzzle you have to solve piece by piece.
Right. You're thinking about the rules.
Exactly. But when you actually speak, you don't have time for that. You can't consciously recall the rule for, say, the past perfect tense, then translate it from your own language, and then finally produce the sentence.
It's way too slow. You just freeze up.
Precisely. It leads to hesitation, that deer in the headlights feeling, and it's incredibly draining mentally, massive cognitive fatigue.
So the big shift, the kind of aha moment here, is a change in philosophy.
Yes.
We don't acquire language by memorizing rules like that. We acquire it how?
By understanding messages. Simple as that. That's the cornerstone of the whole approach we're discussing today. It's called Comprehensible Input. or CI for short.
Comprehensible input. Okay.
Linguistically speaking, this idea leans heavily on a really important distinction: the difference between learning and acquisition.
Learning versus acquisition again. Break that down.
Okay, so learning is the conscious stuff, what you do in a classroom. Explicit knowledge. If I ask you, what's the rule for using the subjunctive mood? You could maybe tell me the rule.
Theoretically. After dusting off some old textbook in my brain.
Right, but acquisition, that's subconscious. It's that intuitive feel for the language you get from just being exposed to it in ways that make sense.
So CI, comprehensible input, is about feeding that subconscious system.
Exactly. CI says that if the input, the stuff you hear or read, is understandable, comprehensible, even if it has a few words you don't know yet, your subconscious mind is busy acquiring that new language naturally without you even realizing it sometimes.
It sounds a bit abstract, maybe.
Yeah.
But how does it actually work? How does the brain do that?
It's all about context. Your
Yeah.
brain is automatically wired to look for clues, to make connections, and our sources gave a really simple, powerful example of this.
Yeah.
It's about physical context acting like a bridge for language. Imagine you're watching someone, right? And they pick up a pen. And as they do it, they say very clearly, I am holding the pen.
Okay, I see the action, I hear the words.
Then they put it down.
Yeah.
And they say, I am putting the pen down.
Got it.
Because the action perfectly matches the words, your brain doesn't need to stop and pull out a dictionary. It doesn't need to translate put down into your native language.
It just connects the sound putting the pen down with the action of putting the pen down.
Bingo. The visual information essentially bypasses that slow translation step and links the sound directly to the meaning, the action.
Wow. That's the magic of CI you mentioned.
That's it. It's an immediate neurological connection. And in that moment, you've just acquired the phrase putting the pen down without any of that heavy cognitive load of formal study.
The context made it comprehensible.
And comprehension is the key ingredient for acquisition.
What's really interesting, too, is that the sources say CI improves everything all at once, not just vocabulary.
Yes, that's a crucial point. Holistic improvement. Traditional methods tend to chop language up into bits. Vocab lists here, grammar drills there, pronunciation practice over here.
Right, separate skills.
But when you acquire through meaningful context, your brain processes it all together. Your listening gets better because you're focused on understanding the whole message. Makes sense. Your sense of grammar develops subconsciously because you're absorbing natural patterns, not memorizing abstract rules.
In pronunciation.
Even pronunciation improves through just listening to and absorbing the sounds and rhythms of native speech. You're basically training your brain to start thinking in English little by little.
Which cuts down on that slow translation step we talked about.
Exactly. Minimizes it.
I think the biggest takeaway for someone listening, especially if they've felt that burnout before, is this. This method doesn't actually feel like studying.
That's the beauty of it.
It feels more like engagement. You're watching something interesting, maybe a cooking video, a short documentary, even simple stories.
Right, content you actually enjoy.
And because your brain is engaged through the context, through repetition within the content, maybe even through emotion, if it's a compelling story.
Yes, emotion is a powerful memory enhancer.
It starts to feel more like how kids learn their first language, doesn't it? That natural, almost effortless way. They just seem to absorb it.
It mirrors that natural process much more closely than drilling grammar tables ever could.
So the main point from this first section, the actionable idea, is really stop searching for rules.
Yes. Start searching for messages you can understand, comprehensible messages.
Treat English as a tool for communication, not just an academic subject.
Once you make that mental shift, the sources suggest the speed of acquisition can increase dramatically. Exponentially, even.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork. Comprehensible input is the engine.
Right.
Now let's get practical. How do we actually structure our time, our day, to make this principle work efficiently?
Right, this is where we get into the how-to. The sources outline a really solid 3-step method. It's designed to maximize that input, make sure the language becomes personally relevant to you, and lock it in for the long term.
Okay, the methodology. Let's break it down.
This is kind of the engineering phase, if you like. We're building a system, a low-effort, high-impact system designed specifically to grab those 3,000 key words and really embed them in your memory.
All right, step 1. This is the foundation, right? The daily habit.
Yes, the daily ritual. Find and watch English videos that are comprehensible to you. Meaning the input needs to be at a level where you understand most of it already. Maybe, say, 80 to 90%.
Okay, not totally basic, but not overwhelmingly difficult either.
Exactly. You need to understand the gist, the main message, but there should still be a few new words or phrases sprinkled in, that little gap, that 10–20% you don't know. That's where the acquisition happens naturally through context.
And the sources stress something specific about these videos.
Very specific. They need to rely heavily on two things: clear visuals and simple, real speech.
What are the visuals?
The visuals are like scaffolding. They support your understanding. Think about watching a video on how to build a shelf. Even if you don't know the word hammer, when the person picks up the tool, holds it clearly, and says, "Now I'm using the hammer,"
You get it instantly from the picture.
the context makes the message comprehensible. Visuals cut through ambiguity. They make new words immediately understandable, linking sound and meaning directly.
Got it. Clear visuals, simple speech. But just watching isn't enough, is it? There's an active part to this step.
Correct. Just passively consuming isn't maximizing the potential. The method introduces an active technique to do while you're watching. It's called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, explain exactly what that means. It sounds a bit mysterious.
It's not too complicated, but it takes a little practice. Shadowing is basically repeating what the speaker says almost immediately after they say it.
Like an echo.
Pretty much. A very close echo. You try to mimic their pronunciation, their intonation, the rhythm, with only maybe a half-second delay. You're not waiting for the whole sentence to finish.
So you're kind of talking along with the video slightly behind the speaker.
That's the idea. You're tracking the speech in real time.
That sounds challenging, like trying to rub your stomach and pat your head at the same time.
It can feel like that at first, definitely, but the sources argue it delivers a double benefit that just listening passively can't match.
Okay, benefit one.
First, it's physical training for your mouth. English has specific sounds and requires what linguists sometimes call a particular articulatory setting.
You mean how you hold your tongue, your jaw, your lips?
Exactly. If your native language uses different muscles or positions, you might understand a word perfectly, like, say, schedule. But when you try to say it, it comes out sounding quite different, maybe unintelligible. Shadowing forces your mouth muscles to actually do what native speakers do, to adopt the right physical posture for the sounds.
So it's like pronunciation practice, but dynamic, not just repeating isolated words.
Precisely. You're practicing the flow and rhythm too. And the second benefit is more neurological. By making yourself repeat the sound almost instantly, you strengthen the direct link between the sound you hear and the meaning it carries without needing that detour through translation in your head.
Bypassing translation again.
Yes. And you start to internalize the music of the language, the rhythm, the intonation patterns, which honestly is often more important for being understood than having absolutely perfect grammar.
So shadowing helps you sound more natural, not just get the words right.
Exactly. You move beyond just understanding individual words to internalizing the actual cadence and rhythm of how English is spoken.
And because you're so actively engaged, listening intently, processing, speaking, that learning density we talked about must be huge.
Immense. Even a short, focused 15-minute session of watching comprehensible input with shadowing is incredibly efficient compared to an hour of passive listening or unfocused classroom time.
So consistency is key here, even just 15 minutes a day.
Absolutely. Daily practice is crucial for this step to build momentum.
Okay, step one is done. You've watched your video, you've shadowed along. What happens immediately after? Step two feels like the bridge, right? From just taking things in to actually starting to use the language.
Exactly. This is where you transition from input to active production and consolidation. And the key is to do it right away, while the new language is fresh in your mind. Don't wait.
Keep the momentum going. What's the first action?
It's simple initially. Capture the new stuff. As you watched and shadowed, you probably noticed a few new words or maybe useful phrases. Jot those down.
Okay, make a list. But you warned earlier about just making isolated lists.
Right. A list by itself isn't enough. We need to avoid that trap. The goal is immediate integration. You need to take that new word and immediately plug it into the working machinery of the language.
How do we do that?
This leads to a very specific technique the sources emphasize. It's non-negotiable, they say. It's called the 3/10 rule.
The 3/10 rule. Okay, let's really unpack this one because it sounds specific and important.
It is. The rule is, for every new word or key phrase you write down, you must immediately try to use it in 3 simple sentences. One in the past, one in the present, and one in the future.
Okay, give us an example. Let's say I learned the word anticipate.
Great word. So if you just write, Anticipate to expect something, that's passive knowledge. It sits there.
Right.
But the three-tenths rule forces active use. You'd have to write something like, yesterday I anticipated the meeting would run late. Past. Right now I anticipate a busy afternoon. Present. And next week I will anticipate needing more time for the project. Future.
Ah, I see. You're immediately forcing yourself to use it in different grammatical contexts.
Exactly. And think about the cognitive benefit. You're not just learning the word's meaning, you're practicing its form, how it might change, like adding ed for the past, and you're testing how it fits grammatically with time.
But why three tenses specifically? Why not just one good sentence? Seems like extra work.
It's about building flexibility from the start. If you only ever see or use a word in the present tense, your brain might sort of file it away as only belonging there. It becomes isolated data.
Okay.
When you force yourself to use it across the basic timeline, past, present, future, you're sending a strong signal to your brain. Hey, this word is versatile. It works with structure. It relates to time.
So you're integrating it more deeply into the grammatical system right away.
Precisely. It stops being just an item on a list and starts becoming an active piece of language you can actually use.
That makes sense. But there's another layer to step 2, isn't there? Something about making it personal.
Yes, and this might be the most crucial part for long-term memory. Personalization. After you've done your three tenses, you need to ask yourself a critical question. How would I use this word or phrase in my own life?
Connect it to yourself.
Connect it directly to your experiences, your thoughts, your reality. This taps into something much more powerful than just rote memorization. It taps into emotional memory, autobiographical memory.
Which is stronger.
Vastly stronger. Think about it. If you learn a word like, say, resilience, just from a definition, it's abstract, easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
But if you connect it to a specific time you showed resilience, I showed resilience during that really tough exam period last year, you've created an emotional tag, a personal hook.
And your brain pays more attention to things that relate to you.
Our brains are wired to prioritize self-relevant information. It's survival, partly. Abstract stuff learned from a textbook, easily discarded if not used. Words tied to your story, your experiences. The brain flags them as important, useful for self-expression. They stick.
That's a powerful idea.
Mm-hmm.
We remember things we care about, and we definitely care about our own lives. Tying the word to a memory gives it significance.
Exactly. And there's one final little action in step 2. It's about shifting gears mentally.
Okay.
Moving from just recognizing the word to being able to recall it actively. After you've written your personalized sentences, maybe turn them into simple recall tools like mini quizzes for yourself or very basic flashcards.
What's the difference between recognition and recall?
Recognition is passive. You see the English word and you remember the meaning in your language, or you see the definition and recognize the word. Easy.
Like seeing someone you know in a crowd.
Good analogy. Active recall is harder. It's like being asked, what was the name of that person you met yesterday?
You have to pull the name out of your memory without seeing their face first.
So for language, it's seeing the definition or the translation and having to spontaneously produce the English word itself.
Yes, or seeing a picture that represents the word and having to say the word. That effort, that struggle to retrieve the information, that's what really strengthens the neural pathway, much more effective than just passively recognizing it again.
So step 2 is really about taking that input, working with it structurally, using the tenses, connecting it personally, and then practicing pulling it back out of memory.
You got it. Input, structure, personalization, recall practice. That's the reinforcement cycle. All right, we've done step 1, input shadowing, and step 2, reinforce, personalize, or recall.
Yeah.
But we all know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Learn something new, and a week later, poof, it's gone.
The leaky bucket effect.
Yeah.
The brain is incredibly efficient, maybe too efficient sometimes, at discarding information it thinks isn't essential.
So we need a system to tell the brain, hey, this stuff is important, keep it.
Exactly. And that's step 3, mastering long-term retention. And the key mechanism here, according to the sources, is regular, structured review. Specifically, a weekly review.
Weekly. Why weekly?
This taps into some fundamental principles of memory science. You might have heard of the forgetting curve.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
Something about how quickly we forget things.
Precisely. It was studied by a psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus way back. He showed that without reinforcement, our memory of new information drops off incredibly fast. You might lose, like, 50% or more within just a day or two.
Wow, so if I learn anticipate on Monday using step 2, by Wednesday or Thursday, it could already be fading fast.
Easily. The weekly review acts as a form of spaced repetition. You're revisiting the material at a strategic point, just as your brain might be starting to let it go.
Intercepting the forgetting process.
Exactly. And by forcing yourself to recall that information at spaced intervals, maybe day 1, step 2, then day 7, step 3, maybe day 30 later on, you're sending repeated signals to your long-term memory system.
What's the signal?
The signal is, this information is being used, it's relevant, it's important, don't discard it, file it away permanently.
So this review isn't just about remembering, it's about transferring the knowledge.
Yes. It's the crucial transition point from just having it in your short-term working memory to embedding it as real, usable, accessible fluency.
Okay, so what does this weekly review actually look like? It can't just be passively rereading my notes from the week, can it?
Absolutely not. Passive rereading is notoriously ineffective for long-term memory. Like step 2, this has to be active, intense active production, actually.
Okay, break down the actions for the weekly review.
3 specific actions are required, according to the sources. First, look at your list of the new words and phrases you collected over the past week, just the list itself.
Okay.
Second, try to actively recall the meanings, and maybe try to recall those initial 3 tense sentences you made without looking at your notes for the answers. This is retrieval practice again, testing yourself.
Right, the active recall effort. And the third action, you said it was the most important for real fluency.
Yes. The third and most critical action, you must create new, different sentences using that vocabulary.
Entirely new ones, not just repeating the old ones.
Entirely new ones. If you learn, say, 30 new words or phrases this week, the goal during that review session is to produce 30 new, hopefully personal and meaningful sentences using that language.
Why new sentences? What does that add?
Flexibility. The initial 3-task practice in step 2 was about integrating the word structurally, making sure you understood its basic grammatical function with time. This weekly practice of making new sentences forces you to apply the word flexibly in different situations, with different surrounding words, expressing different ideas.
So if last week in step 2 I wrote, I will anticipate my flight tomorrow. This week during my review, I need to come up with something completely different, like the audience anticipated a surprise ending, but the movie was predictable.
Perfect example. You're flexing the word's muscles, proving to yourself and your brain that you can use it spontaneously in varied contexts.
It's building that mental agility for using the word on the fly in real conversation.
That's exactly it. You're building the muscle memory for spontaneous use. If you commit to this weekly review consistently, those 3,000 core words stop being things you just know passively. They become fluid, readily available tools you can grab and use in conversation without having to consciously search for them.
So the whole 3-step system, the CI input with shadowing, the reinforcement with tenses and personalization, and the spaced weekly review with new sentences, it all works together.
It's a synergistic system designed to bypass the common failure points of traditional learning and build robust, usable fluency.
And it really highlights that consistency, driven by making the process engaging, is the real secret ingredient here. Okay, when you put it all together, this deep dive really seems to boil down to finding a smarter, more efficient way to learn.
Absolutely. Efficiency is key.
We're essentially replacing that high-effort, often sporadic, and frankly tedious traditional study with something that's lower effort on a daily basis, much more consistent, because it's actually engaging and focused on acquisition, not just abstract learning.
And the central argument for why this method works so well, why it's effective, comes back to that engagement factor. Because the process uses comprehensible input you find interesting, maybe videos you'd watch anyway.
It doesn't feel like a chore.
Exactly. It's more enjoyable. And when something is enjoyable, or at least not painful, you're far more likely to stick with it. Consistency is maintained.
And consistency, as we keep saying, is the absolute non-negotiable requirement for reaching fluency.
Yeah.
You just can't get there with stop-start effort.
You can't. And this consistency, built on engagement, leads directly to a pretty startling claim about time saving, which I think listeners, especially busy ones, will find very interesting.
Oh yeah. What's the claim?
The specific data we found in the sources suggests this. 10 to 15 minutes of focused, shadowed, comprehensible input each day.
Okay, that's short session from step 1.
Is roughly equivalent in learning value to nearly 1 hour of traditional classroom language learning.
Whoa, hang on. 15 minutes equals 60 minutes. That sounds almost unbelievable. That's a bold claim.
It is bold, but let's analyze it. Think about what actually happens in a typical 60-minute language class.
Okay, let's break down that hour.
Well, first off, there's probably 5 minutes of just settling in, maybe taking attendance, administrative stuff, dead time, learning-wise.
Right, 5 minutes gone.
Then maybe 10 minutes of the teacher explaining the activity, organizing groups, giving instructions. Necessary, but not direct learning input.
Okay, 15 minutes down.
Then maybe 20 minutes are spent reviewing a grammar point. But often half the class already knows it. Or maybe it's a niche rule not crucial for basic communication yet. It's not always targeted effectively.
True, and not very engaging usually.
And then maybe another 10 minutes involves listening to other students who are also learners trying to produce sentences, which is good practice for them, but it's not high-quality, reliable, comprehensible input for you.
Right, we might even pick up their mistakes.
It's possible.
Yeah.
So when you add it all up, in that 60-minute class, you might only get maybe 20, perhaps 25 minutes of actual, meaningful, comprehensible input or focused production practice yourself. And even that is often broken up.
That's not a lot of bang for your 60-minute buck.
Not really in terms of pure acquisition time. Now, compare that to your focused 15 minutes of CI with shadowing. That 15 minutes, it's 100% dedicated acquisition time. Every single second is spent decoding messages that are mostly understandable, actively practicing native-like rhythm and sound through shadowing, and engaging that powerful subconscious acquisition system.
No waiting, no admin, no listening to incorrect input, no explaining rules you might not need yet.
None of it. You are maximizing your time on task for pure message acquisition. Pure gold, linguistically speaking.
So the learning density is just way higher, maybe 4 times higher, like the claim suggests.
That's the argument. And crucially, because the perceived effort is lower, it's engaging content, remember, you're much more likely to actually do it every day.
That daily habit, even if it's short, creates continuous momentum, whereas the traditional model often leads to these intense bursts of study.
Followed by burnout and long gaps where you forget everything.
Right, that stop-start cycle.
So over a year, the person doing that focused 15 minutes daily likely builds up significantly more practical, usable language skill than someone who inconsistently attends, say, 2 high-effort, low-density 2-hour classes per week.
You're essentially getting the benefit of maybe 4 hours of traditional class time structure, but packed into just 60 minutes of your own focused effort spread across the week.
That's the potential efficiency gain. It's a fundamental shift in how you approach the learning process.
It feels like reclaiming your time and working with your brain's natural tendencies, liking context, needing personal relevance instead of fighting against them, to get to that 3,000-word core.
Precisely. So let's crystallize this for everyone listening. Let's bring it back to a super clear, actionable plan. We've given you the theory. Now here's the roadmap again.
Okay, the 3 steps, concise version, step 1.
Every day, find that high-quality, comprehensible input. Look for strong visuals, clear speech you mostly understand, and practice shadowing along to really absorb the sound and rhythm. Focus on understanding the message.
Step 2.
Immediately after, grab those few new words or phrases. Reinforce them instantly using the 3-tense rule, past, present, future sentences, and crucially, personalize them. Ask, how does this relate to my life? Make that connection. Then maybe do a quick active recall check.
And step 3.
Review them often. Specifically, schedule a review at least once a week. Don't just reread your list. Actively recall the meanings. And then this is key, make new, different sentences to force flexible usage and lock it into long-term memory through that spaced repetition. We kick this off by saying fluency, that functional fluency based on around 3,000 words, is probably much closer than you think.
Yeah.
This 3-step method provides the how, the structure, but the real power, the thing that makes it work, is your commitment to doing it consistently, day by day.
And the whole approach feels designed to take away some of that anxiety, that academic pressure we often associate with language learning.
It really does. It reframes acquisition as something potentially enjoyable, a process of discovery, not just drudgery. That enjoyment helps maintain consistency.
And consistency makes progress pretty much unstoppable, doesn't it?
It becomes inevitable. So maybe we can leave you with a final thought, kind of a mindset shift that really defines the successful learner.
Okay.
Fluency isn't really about reaching some perfect state where you never make a mistake. It's more about the ability to communicate continuously, even with imperfections.
So fluency isn't perfection.
It's about progress. Continuous progress.
Don't get hung up on that 5% of words you still don't know, or the little grammar mistake you made talking to someone yesterday.
Exactly. Focus on the 95% you did understand in that conversation, or the message you successfully got across. Every single time you understand something new or use a new word successfully, that is progress.
Your goal shouldn't be this massive, intimidating thing like speak perfectly like a native by next month.
No way! A much better goal is simply, today I want to understand one more message or use one more word correctly than I did yesterday. Small, achievable steps. Embrace that immediate low-effort start.
So we really encourage you, right now even, to just try it. Apply this comprehensible input idea immediately. Find something simple and visual in English online. A cooking tutorial, a how-to guide, maybe even a cartoon.
Something you find interesting.
And just watch, listen, try to understand the message. Maybe try shadowing a little if you feel up to it. Give yourself that focused 15 minutes today. Just see how it feels.
Keep learning, keep practicing using this method, and start recognizing that functional fluency. It really is much closer than you probably ever imagined. Don't give up.